and welcome to the debate. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Viewers, Sana Maqbool is traveling at this moment. I think she's due to join the program later. Till the time she does, I'm going to host the program. So today we are going to talk about two very important developments. One is regarding the Supreme Court's verdict, majority verdict by 6-1, where it has been decided that lifelong punishment or disqualification for the candidates is not appropriate. It has been set aside. Justice Jaya had a dissenting note, disagreed with the interpretation of an earlier verdict that was set aside, Sameerullah Baloch verdict. We are going to talk about the importance of that because it seems that after it, the political avenues for two candidates, that is Mian Nawaz Sharif, the former Prime Minister who was disqualified earlier, and that was the biggest reason why there were questions about his candidature, and also Jahangir Tareen. These two people, they have been vindicated, and by the looks of it, they might be able to participate in elections and run for public office, higher offices as well. The second one is about India's situation and how India keeps on making mockery of its own political system, its own democratic process. Rahul Gandhi has also made an insightful comment. We are going to talk about that as well. But let us first talk about the first topic here. In the studio with me is Raja Faisal, our regular analyst. Thank you very much, Raja sir, for being part of the program. On Skype, we are joined by Barrister Shabbir Shah, who is Advocate Supreme Court of Pakistan, and also Barrister Babar S. Imran, Advocate Supreme Court of Pakistan as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the program. Shabbir Shah sahab, let me start with you. What do you make of today's verdict, and how do you think it is going to impact the political future of the country?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sir, it is a landmark judgment and it is a remarkable judgment, first of all. And not just one political party, but every political party, democratic forces should be celebrating this judgment. What the legislature could not do for so many years, the Supreme Court has done it for us. And in your program previously, we've spoken much about it. Good riddance. I or many others would have only expected that they would revisit Sameerullah Baloch's judgment. But what they've done is they've gone one step ahead, and rightfully so. They have, in a way, made this Article 62(1)(f) redundant. Now, I would explain that any other lawyer would not have used this word because it is the duty of the court not to make any provision of any law or the constitution redundant. But here, what they have done is they have said that 62(1)(f) is not self-executory. Now, this is brilliant because previously have read our constitution in two manners. There are provisions which are self-executory. Then there are provisions which, until and unless the parliament legislates or a law is passed, they cannot be pressed into service. So, strictly speaking, they have not deviated from their earlier principles insofar as they have brilliantly interpreted Article 61(2)(1)(f) of the Constitution. But for the viewers, I would like to make it very simple, the effect of this judgment. So the question before the Supreme Court was that in terms of Sameerullah Baloch, a permanent disqualification would be considered or not. But the Supreme Court has also given a judgment on this point because obviously they had to interpret the effect of Article 62(1)(f). So what they've said is that until and unless the Parliament enacts a new law by defining which court and in what manner the declarations given under Article 62, uh, until such time 62(1)(f) cannot be pressed into service. So in other words, although I don't like using this word, 62(1)(f) is suspended. I mean, on the basis of 62(1)(f), at this point in time, no one can be considered to be disqualified. Even the Supreme Court today or the High Court cannot disqualify anyone under Article 62(1)(f) until and unless the Parliament creates a new law.
Right. Thank you very much, Barrister Shah, for explaining that to us. You used word suspended. I would actually go to suspended animation. At this moment, it seems that it is frozen, but it is not out of commission. Well, let me also bring in Barrister Babar as Imran. Barrister Shah, your take, the same open-ended question for you right now. You can actually comment on the judgment. And secondly, when we are talking about the way this judgment has actually set aside Samiullah Baloch verdict, do you think there is a chance that a future panel might actually set this aside also, or that is not possible now?
Well, I would agree with Shabbir to a certain extent, but before commenting on the judgment, I would like to draw the attention of the audience towards the fact that I don't know how many years back when Mian Nawaz Sharif was convicted and he was disqualified for life, that was considered as a landmark judgment, that was considered as a historic judgment, and everybody was jubilant about it.
Not everybody.
And then I would also, not everybody, but obviously a part of the audience. But what is not very fortunate is the inconsistency of the judgments coming from the apex court of the country. 5 years back, there was one interpretation, and 5 years down the line, there is another interpretation. And there is a very high possibility that probably after 5 years, there will be another interpretation. So I think one of the problems that we have in our country, that institutions are actually run by the individuals and not by the institutions themselves. Once a judgment comes, that is supposed to be the final interpretation. And around the world, it is very seldom that that is changed. Now, coming to the judgment, I actually totally agree with Shabbir that this judgment is totally correct. It has, to a large extent, suspended 62(1)(f), though the Supreme Court also stated that we would not comment on the Elections Act, and especially the Article 232 of it. So till today, it still stands. The 5-year disqualification still stands, and the Supreme Court said that because it was not challenged before us, that is why we are not commenting on it. But otherwise, the judgment, I think, legally speaking, is no doubt a very, very well-interpreted judgment. The court of law, not specifying, not a court of law, is completely correct. Then breach of fair trial is also correct. Then in nowhere around the world, people are disqualified for lives. And this disqualification for life, this seems to be nowhere in any law in Pakistan so far. So the Supreme Court also said that the disqualification for life is actually read into the Constitution, which should not be read into the Constitution. So on the whole, from the four corners of the judgment, I think it is a very well and logically based judgment.
Right. Barrister Sahab, I'm glad that you spoke about these nuances as well, but you were objecting to the lack of consistency. And frankly, is it not the beauty of a legal process that there are many legal minds and they can disagree with each other? Is it not how evolution takes place?
It does. But even in evolution, you see, there has to be specific instances, and there has to be a pace of it. But the pace that we are actually setting aside the previous judgments, I don't think that is completely evolution.
Right. I totally get what you mean. Let me also bring in Raja. Faisal Saab, Raja Saab, your comment on this. Thank you very much for waiting for your turn. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Farrukh. My comments on this, one aspect of it, it represents as the justice delayed is justice denied, because if the previous, verdict, if that hadn't come, then of course we might had Mia Mohammed Nawaz Sharif as Prime Minister at that time, because, of course, he was disqualified and he couldn't go for 2018 elections.
Yeah.
If he would have been contesting that election, so he might have been, Prime Minister once more at that time. But of course, that, verdict, it actually affected it. So justice delayed is justice denied in that context. And now coming towards this, I mean, Farrukh, there will be times, of course, in future, as Barrister Babar has rightly pointed out, that in future, if in 5 years' times, or who knows, in a year's time maybe, somebody else comes and, of course, interprets this law. Yeah.
But again, this is the beauty of it, because there is a parliament. There is going to be a parliament, so parliament can make more laws. Then Supreme Court can again interpret it.
But
it will never stop. Why should it?
This verdict today, it actually strengthens the democracy, because today what has been told is that it is not the court to decide somebody's faith, somebody's Sadiq or Amin or not. It is they are sending it towards the people at large. The democracy should decide the fate of a politician. A politician, when of course goes back to people and asks them.
Hang on, a politician who potentially can be a criminal also.
Well, can be a criminal.
So then legal system shouldn't touch him with a barge pole.
Let the people decide.
No, but again, that is not how justice is done.
Well, this is what today's verdict has said, that of course.
No, I'm asking your. This is a follow-up question to your comment, not to the judgment.
I am just highlighting. Of course, today's verdict, it has said that if somebody is being termed by a law that somebody is disqualified for life, this shouldn't be courts deciding about somebody being disqualified for life. Rather, they should be sent back to people, and people should decide whether they had something, they had committed a crime or not. Of course, now we can say that Mia Mohammed Nawaz Sharif, he will be, going back to people and resorting to people's say, what people want from him. And of course, when he appears in the election, not only him, of course, Jahangir Tareen is, a leader of another party. When he goes back to people, he would ask people to decide about him, decide about his fate, whether he was wrongly, got into that case or not. So to me, I think this is the best solution in democracies. People at large, they are the ones who
just
should
to
be
clarify,
deciding.
and that is why I asked that follow-up question, just to clarify that the Supreme Court is not actually taking away the disqualification aspect of it at all. Totally, absolutely. But it is only defining a contour of that. Allow me to actually go back to Barrister Shabbir Shah, and I'm going to come back to you, Raja Saab. Barrister Saab, since we are talking about disqualification, now as the law stands, or as the interpretation stands, if somebody is a convict and he has actually, served his sentence, then how much disqualification are we talking about before he can or she can go to elections again?
You see, the law in that sense has remained unchanged. The Honorable Supreme Court has only given the judgment on Article 62(1)(f). So Article 63(1)(h), which specifically talks about a conviction on moral turpitude offences pertaining to moral turpitude, just in respect of which 2 years sentence has been handed down. From that date, 5 years must elapse. So 63(1)(h remains unchanged. A very interesting question can arise, that how about if somebody has been convicted of an offence involving moral turpitude, but he has been sentenced to 23 months. He gets sentenced to, let's say, 1 year. Now, in that sense, the Constitution is silent. Previously, 62(1)(f) governed or could have possibly governed that situation, because in my opinion, if somebody is convicted of an offence involving moral turpitude, that somebody is automatically dishonest. But I think the Parliament will legislate insofar as this is concerned. There is another, I think the NAB law in itself also prescribes a disqualification, although one would question the very legitimacy or competence of that law, whether or not it can provide for qualifications or disqualifications. But if the law is passed by the Parliament may. That was besides the topic. I would just want to comment on my learned friend Mr. Babar's opinion. It is correct that the law must have certainty. The first principle of developed countries is the law. And when I say law, it is the law declared by the Supreme Court also. It must be certain. We cannot afford to have a change, or rather a frequent change in the law. But when a change is necessitated, such as the case in the present case, then we should welcome that change, because everywhere in the world, it is well settled that the apex court, the last court, is not bound by its earlier judgments. So let's suppose the Supreme Court itself, even our law is well settled, the House of Lords in England and everywhere else, the last court is never bound by its earlier judgments. Because if the last court is bound by its earlier judgments, then the law would become static. The law would not change. If an error is committed, the Supreme Court should even tomorrow have the power to change the law. Today,
absolutely, Barrister sir, but since Barrister Babar actually pointed out something, I want you to actually comment on that as well. He pointed to the fact that when, and certainly an empathy wall, when this judgment, the previous judgment came, at that time also there were people who were celebrating. So they will also be in the society, and they will also be anticipating someday when they can celebrate again. And it seems that but during the previous CJ's time, there has been cases of flip-flopping. For example, Sameerullah Baloch is one case, but what happens after that when Faisal Wada goes, and the same CJ actually says that this is inhuman or something to that effect. And then you spoke about NAB law. There is something very interesting about NAB law, because it was basically an ordinance by a dictator, but democratic governments haven't been able to change it. So the question is that these pressures and flip-flops, are they not going to continue in the future, and what becomes of them?
I am glad that you asked this question. And you see, we stand educated today. Every voter or every supporter of a different party, look at today, for instance, I would be shocked, actually, or rather surprised, if a political party were to oppose this judgment, or if anyone were to be aggrieved by this judgment. In fact, today, you see, we would have to go back to the Panama judgment. Panama judgment, what happened there? The Supreme Court, without leading evidence in its original jurisdiction, is declaring that the Prime Minister offshore country is dishonest, full stop. without giving him a right of opportunity to cross-examine, because it is a very, very dangerous allegation if you say that you are dishonest, you are not righteous. So if you are to establish it, if you are to prove it, then it must happen through a court of law. So, I mean, it was a joke on this country. So, and I've always maintained this opinion that you cannot send your elected representatives back home on these notions that today the RO decides that you are not a good Muslim, that today a court of law, why should a court decide that you are honest or not? It should be the people of Pakistan. And the short order today has also mentioned this, that the ultimate arbiter are the people of Pakistan. So I am very firm in my opinion that thank God we've gotten rid of that judgment. And one more thing, which is that this judgment actually, for example, PTI recently had been complaining that our forms are rejected, and on the face of it, they are extremely aggrieved that on the basis of 62(1)(f or these tactics, their forms are being rejected. In fact, they should be welcoming this judgment, and every political party should be welcoming this judgment, because the field is open. Go and get yourself elected.
The power returns to the people, right? Absolutely. Let me go back to Barrister Babar. Barrister Sahab, thank you once again that you are helping us understand the verdict today. Could you also speak to what was said by Justice Jaya Afridi's dissenting note, and how exactly did he disagree with the whole premise?
Well, before going there, I would like to, as Shabbir pointed out, I would like to respond to him. Around the world, in a parliament, you make legislation, and you make legislation as per the current scenarios, what's going on in the country. If there is an offense going too high, you make new legislation regarding that. I can totally understand that if a new parliament comes in, they can make laws, and the concept is such that due to the as far as the current things are concerned or issues are concerned, you should legislate. But around the world, I have yet to see such inconsistency of judicial orders coming in. If this is so, then I think we should actually applaud a doctrine of necessity which was created in Pakistan, which is not applauded by any circles whatsoever of the lawyers community. So I think the doctrine of necessity, if you give them this power that every few years you can change, then they can do anything that they under the doctrine of necessity. Now coming to Justice Yahya Saab's dissenting note. Justice Yahya Saab dissenting note is actually not very clear, but once the full written order comes in, it will become clear. But as far as I have interpreted it, it has actually kept intact the Sami Baloch judgment, and what he has done is that he has actually given the court of law the power to declare them disqualified for an X amount of years, whether that be for life or for any particular time, 2 years, 1 year. And Justice Yahya Saab has stated that they have to go through that disqualification because it is by a competent court of law. And Justice Jaya has also stated that unless and until if a higher forum sets aside that judgment attains finality, and the disqualification for whatever amount of time will remain intact. So he has his own views on it. Once the whole written order comes, that would probably clarify it more.
Right. Another question regarding, this term that we are using, moral turpitude. I kept on watching commentators actually appearing on television, Barrister Babar, and they were, particularly those who are of pro-PTI persuasion, the same people who were earlier when the tapes actually, there were audio leaks of Imran Khan Sahib at that time, they were telling us that personal character has nothing to do with these matters. Today they were quoting, scriptures, and they were telling how a person who is not Sadiq or Amin, they should not qualify. Now there's going to be this empathy wall that is going to continue to divide people, and then the use of religion there also is going to be rampant. How does today's judgment actually take care of that religious aspect of it?
Well, as far as the offense of moral turpitude is concerned, moral turpitude is any offense which actually, which violates the sentiments of the society as a whole. Now, this one word is so wide that if I want to, I can actually put probably 80 to 90% of law under the moral turpitude. So I think that it's the same that you are actually putting a very huge thing into something very small. So I think as far as the moral turpitude offenses are concerned, for example, if somebody is convicted of a 9C offense, smuggling of any narcotics, that is an offense of moral turpitude. Or if somebody's hiding his property before the RO, that is another moral turpitude offense. Or if somebody has issued a check and it has been bounced due to his malafide intent, that is also offense of moral turpitude. So I think that is a very wide term, and you can't really, close it up. You can't really close up the moral turpitude.
Right. And that is interesting, because I want to take the same question to Raja Faisal. Raja Sahab, today and my colleagues as well on other channels were commenting, how can the Supreme Court allow a liar to become, head of the country, or they can be parliamentarian? They perhaps don't know what they have themselves defended in the past. But this use of religion in politics, and I think that you are our resident PTI expert also. You understand their gharat or their way of thinking, and then you understand other political parties also. Is there possible that abuse of religion in politics and legal issues that stops, because that harms the image of religion itself as well, not merely politicians?
Yeah, Farrukh, obviously, if we look at religion itself is, a beautiful aspect of our life. Being Pakistanis, being a Muslim in Pakistan, of course, it is the most beautiful thing we can say. But when it comes to, of course, Pakistan's, governmental structures or the way society moves around, then of course we have to look into this fact as well, that we are a republic. An Islamic republic, yes, but we are a republic, and of course democracy maintains this country's social fabric. And when we talk about society, the politics here, of course we know that politics without the political gimmicks, it's colorless. And to have the color, of course, there are all of the parties, they are maintaining this sort of, to gain power within the society. They keep on using religion. Religion should be set aside, I must say, but the basic principles of politics.
Do you understand? I hope you are grasping the essence of what I am asking.
Yeah.
I am not saying that religion is irrelevant. What my concern is that we have repeatedly seen the same people who have a different standard to judge others, interpreting one facet of religion, they have very different value system for their own implementation of their own life.
Exactly.
And this has been happening throughout our life. Every political party has done it. Is there a possibility, because there is this moral flexibility that makes a joke of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Is it possible that our political parties understand that this is something where you shouldn't go, and there can be some very negative impact in the long run?
Exactly. Farrukh, there is a Punjabi example which I want to quote here, obviously translated into English. They say, your dog is dog and my dog is Tommy.
Yeah,
So this is what is...
It is not Punjabi, it is Urdu as well.
It is Urdu as well.
Yeah.
Or, this is what has been happening in Pakistan's politics. And I think this must end now. As I have earlier said, that people should be the one who decide. And by the way, when we talk about the people, I mean, have anyone ever asked people whether they are of a good character or they are of a saner position of their mind to vote for somebody or to bring somebody in power or to decide whether somebody is of good character or not? So this is the case. I mean, leave it up to people. Majority must decide in a democracy, and let's the people decide, and let the politician go back to people and get the verdict, people's verdict from them, and then come back on Constitution Avenue. And once for all, I mean, whatever the amendments are to be made in the Constitution, do it.
Right. And Barrister Shabbir Shah, since we are talking about today's verdict, let us talk about people who, in view of today's judgment, were wronged 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Now the question is, all over the world, wherever a system, any system of a country actually, subjects people to abuse, then they are usually entitled to claiming some kind of damages. Now we have seen that certain people were, put through hell, and now today they are sort of kind of vindicated. So is there some kind of leeway in the system where they can also get some kind of compensation or some kind of solutions based on how they were wronged in the past?
Before I answer this question, I am tempted to tell you the idiom which relates to the dog idiom. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. In English, in English, you say good for the goose is good for the gander. So coming back to your question, you see, the Constitution provides a security net which is called independence of judiciary, which is also called, and the same net is provided to the bureaucrats as well as the government office holders, which is that when you take judgment, when you pass judgments in your official capacity. So for example, if the High Court has passed a judgment which is wrong, the Supreme Court sets it aside. The Supreme Court doesn't have to punish the judge of the High Court who's passed that judgment. Right? Similarly, if the Supreme Court later reviews its earlier judgment, the only ground which is that the earlier judgment has to have errors floating on the surface of record. So the
But
beauty,
hang on. Just to clarify my question, Barrister Sahab, just to qualify my question, you are looking at institutional level. I'm talking about systemic level. For me, if I'm wronged by the law, it is essentially the state of Pakistan that has put me through it. So can I get some kind of financial damages from the state?
Yes, that's, I mean, theoretically, yes, you can. But in today's present scenario, it would again become a political question. But whenever a false FIR is lodged against you, there is the remedy of malicious prosecution, which the state gives you. You can also sue the wrongdoer, which would have to be the state in giving you the compensation. But I was looking at it more systematically because the public backlash has been, people have been saying that the judges who had handed down the Panama judgment, they should personally be held responsible. So just to express my opinion on the larger issue, I believe that in order to maintain the system, it is fine. You can give wrong judgments. You don't have to personally go after judges for giving wrong judgments, because that would take away the independence of judiciary. Similarly, we have to see it from the other angle. If a government servant, if a minister, if a bureaucrat has taken a wrong decision You don't have to institute criminal proceedings against them. You don't have to launch NAB's victimization against them. This is what has been happening in the past. I mean, you need to provide one of the other lack of, I would say, and I would like to point out, is that previously in the past 10, 12 years, we have seen judgments only to ensure independence of judiciary, but we have not seen a single judgment to ensure independence of parliamentarians, independence of bureaucrats, independence of the executive. And merely if a government servant or a minister would sign a summary, although he may not be a technically expert, he would be convicted by a court that you had a wrong reading of law. So we need to give everybody that space. Otherwise, the development will be halted.
Right, absolutely. I'm told that we are running out of time. So, Barrister Babar, for one final time, I'm coming to you, sir. You can comment on this, and then there is a question of motivation of a certain judge as well. There is an inherent accountability process within the judiciary as well, and that's why Supreme Judicial Council actually exists. If somebody tomorrow we actually realize or we find evidence that there was certain verdicts that were actually taken under pressure, or for that matter for some other motivation other than laws or interpretation of law, then is there a recourse for that kind of accountability or some kind of punitive measure as well?
Well, first, I would just like to go back and say you were talking about the religious sentiments involved. I think before the 1970s, when the constitution did not have the semblance of the religion in it, around the world, because we were born as a secular state, I think it would have been better. These are two systems, the British and the Islamic systems merged into one document, so that creates confusion. Now, coming back to the Supreme Judicial Council and the one of the judges, I don't know the name, but I think under the current Chief Justice is what he's doing now is he is making those rules of the Supreme Judicial Council, which initially was not very active. Now it's very active. If somebody has done something which is against the law, and if there was another element involved in delivering a judgment, I'm sure that that particular person will be punished for it if that is proven against him. Even otherwise, one of the other things which we are very happy as lawyers is that elevation to the high courts of different provinces, or for that matter to the Supreme Court, is now going to be made as per some rules. Previously, what used to happen was that the Chief Justice just used to recommend one of the lawyers or the judges, and he used to be appointed. Now they're making a very detailed and exhaustive criteria as to who can become a judge and who can become not a judge. So as far as the Supreme Judicial Council...
And Barrister Babar, that is heartening to hear, but I'm told that we have actually run out of time. Barrister Babar S. Imran, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Barrister Shabbir Shah, always a great pleasure having you in the show as well. Thank you very much for being part of the program. Now, viewers, we are going to talk about our second issue or discussion topic, and that is India, and especially the kind of gift that is India's judiciary and political system that keeps on giving. Remember Bilkis Bano case, where a woman that was subjected to torture, gang rape, and then after quite some time, all the accused were actually convicts, were allowed to walk free. Now, another court has actually called, that decision abuse of power, and those people have been, court has ordered that those people are arraigned as again. So Rahul Gandhi has actually pointed out that BJP, again, he doesn't actually shrink from such comments. Earlier he had actually said something about Modi, and that actually disqualified him for a bit. But now he has said that why is it that BJP or RSS are the patrons of all these criminals. So we are going to talk about that. Raja Faisal is in the studio with his loaded commentary. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Farrukh, obviously we all know about this case, Bilkis Bano case. I mean, there were, scores of women, Muslim women, who were raped on that day in 2002 when Gujarat riots took place. Villages after villages, of course, they were brutalized, and majority of them, I mean, the murders that took place of females at that day, of course, there were examples of few of the women. After the rape, they were pierced through their private parts, and obviously that's how they were slaughtered out there. But now what had happened is,
and their only crime was that they were Muslims.
They were Muslims. They were Muslims, and this was the only crime they had. And of course, in these riots, what we saw that BJP, of course, was ruling at that time in Gujarat state, and at that time, of course, guess who was the CM of Gujarat? It was the very Modi, who's actually is the PM of the country now. And
hang on.
PM.
Let us also remind people that at that time, Narendra Modi was not elected CM of the province. He was a last moment, placeholder because his predecessor had been disqualified, and that's why he actually came to power.
Yeah, and that's how he came to power, and he knew how to actually get hold of that power. What he did was, whatever the hardliner Hindus they wanted him to do, that is what he did. And with the support of course, RSS at that time, Bajrang Dals, and all of these, with the support of them, he gained momentum in Gujarat. He was considered as butcher of Gujarat at that time. What he did in 2022, he made sure that the people who were involved in this case, they were let free from obviously the system, and system itself, and let them go.
And by the way, we saw this with Samjhota case as well. Abhinav Bharat's
Nabadas,
right, and various others were gradually, the evidence was removed and they were sent outside. Colonel Purohit was even allowed to go back to army and join it, right?
And Makki Masjid case as well.
Yeah, Makki Masjid as well.
Yeah,
so that is true. But let us now talk about Rahul Gandhi again. Do you think that this statement again is going to land him in more trouble?
In more trouble, because if we look at today's India, of course, today's India, the society at large, of course, it is engulfed by the Hindutva ideology. And I believe when we see these sort of comments coming from the opposition side, of course, I know there is something which is going to happen very bad to obviously Rahul Gandhi as well, because Rahul Gandhi in past when he commented,
and let us hope that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
But I'm told that we have to conclude the program here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your precious comments. Of course, these things will remain subject of our discussion in coming days. This was today's program. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, I will be on personal leave. But Raja Faisal and Sana Maqbool will, keep chugging on. They'll keep bringing you more discussion. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.